Hello and welcome back again and again and again, coffee beans. This is General Agriculture. Definition of terms. Part 5 continuation.
Tallow, the fat extracted from adipose tissue of cattle and sheep. Tannin, that portion of the water-soluble matter of certain vegetable materials which will precipitate gelatin from solution and which will form compounds with hide fiber that are resistant to washing. Tannins are amorphous or crystalline solids of astringent taste having wide occurrence and general distribution in the tissue of most higher plants. Taproot, a single central root. Tax, is the fund collected by the government to finance its activities. Taxonomy, is the science of classification. TDS, total dissolved solids teasing, bringing the stallion into the presence of the mare to see if she will mate. Tendril, a leaflet or stem modified for climbing or anchorage, as in the tensile stresses are those tending to pull an object into, or to stretch it. Terminal market, is a metropolitan market that handles all agricultural commodities. Terminal sire, the sire used in a terminal crossbreeding program. It is intended that all offspring from a terminal sire be sold as market animals. Test barn, the subject for stare tobacco curing structure. Test combine, the combine or combine configuration to be tested. Test run, the event necessary to record a single set of measurements. Tether, to tie an animal with a rope or chain to allow grazing but prevent straying. Tetraploid, having 4 times the primary chromosome member. Texture, refers to the size and the proportional amount of woody elements. In relation to the size of pores, texture can be described as very fine, when pores are visible only with hand lens; fine, pores are just or barely visible to the naked eye; moderately coarse, pores readily available to the naked eye; and coarse, very distinct to the naked eye. Thermal environment, those environmental components that affect the heat content of an animal's body. Thermally induced pressures, pressures induced in the filled bin when subjected to a decline in ambient temperature. Thermal neutral zone, environmental temperature at which an animal's body is at equilibrium. Thermal vaporizer, an apparatus consisting of a container for chemical and a heater to maintain the vessel at a temperature sufficiently high to accelerate evaporation or sublimation of the pesticide. Thermocouple, metal device used to measure temperature accurately. Tick, is any of the various blood-sucking arachnida, which fasten themselves to warm-blooded animals. Tidal gate, precipitation reaching the ground beneath a vegetative canopy such as a forest, includes drip from the leaves and twigs, but not stem flow. Tiered pricing, increased block rate pricing. Tie-up type, pugnacious animals are tied within the pen while awaiting to be slaughtered. Till, an unstratified or crudely stratified glacial deposit consisting of a stiff matrix of fine rock fragments and old soil containing subangular stones of various sizes and composition, many of which may be striated. It forms a mantle from less than 1 meter over 100 meters in thickness covering areas which carry an ice sheet or glaciers during the Pleistocene and Holocene periods. Tilth, is used in reference to the overall physical condition of a soil, frequently regarding its suitability as a seedbed. Timeliness, ability to perform an activity at such a time that crop return is optimized considering quantity and quality of product. Timeliness coefficient, a factor used to estimate the reduction in crop return due to lack of timeliness in performing an activity. Time of day pricing, pricing that charges users relatively higher prices during utilities peak use periods. Tissue culture, the technique of growing a whole plant from a single engineered cell or piece of plant tissue. Tom or gabbler, is a breeding male turkey. Tooth flank, the portion of the surface of a tooth laying between the teeth surface and the root surface. Top dressing, a broadcast fertilizer application in which the fertilizer is applied overhead on already growing seedlings. This should be followed by overhead watering to remove fertilizer lodging on the leaves. Top line, includes the back, loin and rumps, in horses. Toposequence, a sequence of soils whose properties are determined by their particular topographic situation. Topsoil, is the surface soil, usually the plow depth of the A horizon. Total digestible nutrients, TDN, includes the total amounts of digestible protein, nitrogen-free extract, fiber, and fat, multiplied by 2.25, all summed together. Total dissolved solids, TDS, it is the total amount, in milligrams, of solid material dissolved in 1 liter of water. Total mixed ration, a diet where all the feed ingredients are blended together to ensure every bit is nutritionally balanced. Total suspended solids, TSS, the concentration of all substances suspended in water, solids remaining after filtering of a water sample. Touch potential, the potential difference between a grounded metallic structure and a point on the Earth's surface separated by a distance equal to the normal maximum reach. Toxic, refers to a substance which is harmful to living organisms. Toxic ingredients or materials, specific ingredients or materials in a solution or formulation having the ability to inhibit or destroy the life processes of living organisms. Toxicity, adverse biological effect due to toxins and other compounds. Toxicity classifications and warning, signal words adopted for the following various levels of toxicity. Toxicity Category 1, signal word used to describe as danger. Highest hazard indicator. Toxicity Category 2, signal word used to describe as warning. Toxicity Category 3, signal word used to describe as caution. Toxicity Category 4, signal word used to describe as caution. Toxic materials, materials that inhibit the normal growth of pathogens in the digester such as mineral ions, heavy metals and detergents. Toxic substance, a substance that is present in the soil or above the ground atmosphere that inhibits the growth of plants and ultimately may cause deficiency symptoms or their death. Toxemia, refers to the generalized blood poisoning, especially a form in which the toxins produced by pathogenic bacteria enter the bloodstream from a local lesion and are distributed throughout the body. Toxins are poisonous substances produced by certain microorganisms capable of causing toxicosis. Trace minerals are minerals normally present at low levels in animal body or needed in very small amount in the diet. Include copper, zinc, cobalt, fluorine, iodine, iron, manganese, selenium and are toxic at large quantities. Traditional variety refers to the indigenous or native varieties of rice and corn other than fancy rice varieties. Transactional function involves selling, financing, risk-taking in product storage for future sales. Transferable development rights, compensation awarded to landowners whose use of land is restricted because of classification as prime farmland, floodplain, etc. Transpiration, it is the process by which the water vapor escapes from living plants, principally leaves, and enters the atmosphere. Transplant, small plants grown in a plant bed or plot or are removed from a seeded row for resetting in a new location. Tree fruits, are plants or trees yielding edible, fleshy fruits, usually perennials. Triploid, a specific case of polyploidy in which there are 3 Newton's chromosomes. True protein, is composed of amino acids. Tuber, a short, thickened subterranean branch. Turbidity, cloudiness caused by the presence of suspended solids in water, an indicator of water quality. Turkey hen, a breeding female turkey. Type, the makeup or structure of a group of animals that were developed to perform a certain function or purpose. Ultrasound, a process used to measure fat thickness and ribeye area in swine and cattle. The machine sends sound waves into the back of the animal and records these waves as they bounce off the tissues. Different lengths are recorded for fat than for lean. Also used to diagnose pregnancy. Unavailable nutrients are plant nutrients that are present in the soil but cannot be taken up by the roots because they have not been released from the rock or minerals by weathering or from organic matter by decomposition. Unavailable soil water, that portion of water in a soil held so tightly by adhesion and other soil forces that it cannot be absorbed by plants rapidly enough to sustain growth. Soil water at permanent wilting point. Unavailable water, water that is present in the soil but cannot be taken up by plant roots because it is strongly adsorbed onto the surface of particles. Underpinning, a collective term denoting the four legs of an animal. Undersoundness, this term denotes a malformation of a part of an animal, or a malady, which may not disturb the health of the animal but adversely influences its serviceability. Unearned increment, income, consists of income received in advance for which goods, services will be provided in the future. Uneven-aged, applies to a stand in which there are considerable differences in age of trees and in which 3 or more age classes are represented. Uniparous, refers to producing only one egg, one offspring at a time. Unisexual, containing either stamens or pistils, but not both. Unit cost, is the average cost to produce a single item. The total cost divided by the number of items produced. Urban, a concept defining an area that has a population of 2,500 or more inhabitants. Useful life of filter media, length of time when filter media functions effectively in removing contaminants without the need for replacement. Uterus, that portion of the female reproductive tract where the young develop during pregnancy. Vaccine, a suspension of attenuated or killed microbes or toxins administered to induce active immunity in the recipient. Vaccination, to inoculate, with a mildly toxic preparation of bacteria or virus of specific disease to prevent or lessen the effects of that disease. Vagina, the copulatory portion of the female's reproductive tract. The vestibule portion of the vagina also serves for passage of urine. The vagina also serves as a canal through which young pass when born. Value added, is the amount of economic value generated by the activity carried on within each production unit and the economy. Value-added resellers, are those who buy from the producer and resell basic products after having added value to them by product modification or expression. Value-added tax, is an indirect tax, also known as ad valorem tax, levied at the time of each exchange of goods and services from primary production to consumption, generally stated as a proportion of the value added at each stage of production. Vaporization, though not strictly a homeothermic reaction, this is the most important process by which the animal loses heat to maintain a constant body temperature. Variation, refers to the occurrence of differences among individuals of a species or variety. Variety, is a group of individuals within a species that differ with the rest of the species. Variety meats, edible organ byproducts, for example liver, heart, tongue, tripe. Vasopressin or antidiuretic hormone, a DH, is a hormone secreted by the neurohypophysis or posterior pituitary lobe which is important in conserving body water by reducing urine formation. Veal, cattle, 1 year or less. Veal calves, young cattle raised only to a weight of about 500 pounds. Vector, in biology, a carrier. A vector is generally an insect that carries pollen or disease-causing organism from plant to plant. Vegetative cover, trees or perennial grasses, legumes, or shrubs with an expected lifespan of 5 years or more. Venison, meat products of a deer. Vessel, an articulated tube-like structure of indeterminate length porous woods, formed through the fusion of the cells, vessel elements, in a longitudinal row. Virus, an ultramicroscopic protein bodies, the presence of certain types of which cause mosaic and other diseases in plant tissue. Virus-resistant plants, are plants that have been genetically modified so that they are resistant to a particular disease-causing virus. Viscera, internal organs and glands contained in the thoracic and abdominal cavities. Visible grain damage, kernel damage where the seed coat appears broken to the naked eye. Visual task, conventionally designates those details and objects that must be seen for the performance of a given activity, and includes the immediate background of the details or objects. Vitamin, an organic catalase, or a component thereof, that facilitates specific and necessary functions. Viticulture, the science and practice of growing grapes. Walk, A 4-beat gait of a horse in which each foot strikes the ground at a time different from each of the other 3 feet. Warning, indicates a potentially hazardous situation that, if not avoided, could result in death or serious injury. Water, H2O, an odorless, tasteless, colorless liquid formed by a combination of hydrogen and oxygen, forms streams, lakes, and seas, and is a major constituent of all living matter. Water, free, moisture held in the cell cavities of the wood, not bound in the cell wall. Wean, remove permanently from nursing mother's milk. Weaner, piglet that has been recently separated from its mother. Weaning, the act of separating the young from the dam. Weanling, a young pig separated from their dam, about 2 months old. Weathering, all the physical, chemical and biological processes that cause the disintegration of rocks at or near the surface. Weatherproof, constructed or protected so that exposure to the weather will not interfere with successful operation. Weed, is a plant that, in its location is more harmful than beneficial. Wet, used to describe a milking female, for example wet cow or wet ewe. Wether sheep, a male sheep which is castrated while young, preferably between 1 to 3 weeks of age. Wether goat, a castrated male goat which has unsexed before the secondary sex characters have developed. Wether, a castrated male sheep. White corns, are corn grains of white color with not more than the permitted percentage of corn of other colors as indicated in the grade requirement for corn. A slight tinge of color other than the white shall not affect their classification as white corn. White corn grits, are milled corn grits which may include not more than 5% of corn grits of other color. White soil, is poor in organic matter, or very low in iron. In low rainfall areas may contain excess calcium chloride, CaCl2, or calcium sulfate, CaSO4. Whole grain, mature unbroken grain. Whole kernels, unbroken kernels after shelling. Wilting point, synonymous with permanent wilting point, wilting percentage. It can be estimated by dividing the field capacity by a factor varying from 2.0 to 2.4 depending upon the amount of silt in the soil. Winking, indication of estrus in the mare in which the vulva opens and closes. Withdrawal time, is the length of time before slaughter that a drug should not be given to an animal. Withers, top of the shoulders. Wood, the hard material between the pith and the bark in the stems and branches of trees, made up of a variety of organized hollow cells and consisting chemically of cellulose, hemicelluloses, lignin, and extractives. Wood substance, the extractive free solid material of which the cell walls of dried wood are composed, having essentially the same specific gravity in all species. Wool, the fibers that grow from the skin of sheep. Woolens, are clothes made from short and highly crimped wool fibers called carding wools. Woven wire floor, type of slotted floor made of heavy gauge woven wire mesh, usually for young or small animals. Xerophyte, is a plant adapted to arid conditions. Xylem, is the woody part of a fibrovascular bundle containing vessels, the water-conducting tissue. Yearling, livestock between 1 and 2 years of age. Yelled mare, is a dry mare that do not produce any young during the breeding season. Yellow corn, is a corn grain of yellow color with not more than the permitted percentage of corn of other colors as indicated in the grading requirements for corn. A slight tinge of color other than yellow shall not affect their classification as yellow corn. Yellow corn grits, are milled corn grains, which may include not more than 5% of corn grits of other color. Yellow or damaged kernels, are yellowish milled rice damaged by fermentation or heat and or by water, insects or mechanical means. Yield grades, the grouping of animals according to the estimated trimmed lean meat that their carcasses would provide. Cootability. Zooplankton, tiny aquatic animals eaten by fish. Zygote, is the product of united gametes. Hope it helps. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next part. Please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, Like this video and comment your suggestion on topic you want to hear. Bye. Roar.